Welcome back for another sector interview. I'm Andreas, Senie, host of the CRECo Collaborative Roundtable, founder of the CRECo.ai platform, and brokerage owner and technology growth strategist. Sector interviews are bonus episodes of the Roundtable, your comprehensive view of what's happening across the real estate industry, straight from some of the industry's earliest technology adopters and foremost experts. Joining me today, speaking of foremost experts, is none other than Rebekah Carlson, commonly known as Becca, who has been a staple in the Illinois real estate market and nationwide, ICSC events all over in her 14 years in investment firm, as working within an investment firm, and mother, Toastmaster, member of ICSC. What did I miss, Becca? Welcome. Nice to see you.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Andreas. It is always a delight to be on the podcast, and having a sector interview is a really neat opportunity for people to get to know me a little bit better, and also for you and I to have some one-on-one time, which I very much appreciate.
Absolutely. And I'm sure our audience is going to appreciate the deep dive into the world of marketing, all the secrets, although we can't give them all the secrets, because they have to hire Carlson Integrated for some of those secrets.
Absolutely, yes.
Speaking of award-winning websites, you just received an award for one of your blogs, if I recall correctly.
That's right. Thank you for remembering. We actually got an platinumlevel.com award for our own Carlson Integrated blog, which was really exciting from other marketers in the industry that, from a content perspective, is meaningful and effective. Coolest thing about our blog is that I don't write it all by any stretch. My team is all hands on board writing, which to me gives so many different voices and so many different areas of expertise. I have 10 people on my team. We have really smart women who are really experts in specific areas of marketing, and to pull all of those voices into a singular blog and have it be cohesive and then get an award for that was pretty exciting.
That is awesome. And speaking of women in real estate, you're the 2020 recipient of Connect Media's Women in Real Estate.
I was one of the women in Chicago. There were 10 of us in Chicago that year, and I believe they do that every year, of getting some acknowledgement for some of the contributions that I've made, which is really quite an honor.
So, thought leadership, teamwork, surrounding yourself with smart people, kind of an overriding theme in all our shows. Here you are, you're doing that at Carlson Integrated. You've surrounded yourself with very smart people, you listen to them, and you deploy them. How are you? What does that mean in marketing today? It's the end of 2022. We're headed into the holidays. What does a marketing plan look like? What should people be doing?
I have a couple of kind of stock answers that I have when we talk about marketing planning, and especially end of the year, it is the season for that. Number one, I truly believe that all marketing starts with the calendar. You're not going to do anything if you haven't calendared it out. We can have great strategy meetings. We can identify our audience avatars. We can talk about our sales verticals and our messaging for each of those. But if there's no calendar tied to it, nothing's going to happen. So starting off and recognizing that the process of what we're doing today is only as valuable as our focus on execution of that process, of that strategy process tomorrow, is really the place to start.
And was that something you learned as a mother of three, or building out these calendars at an investment firm? I mean, when did you focus first on long-term execution versus marketing? Because a lot of marketing I run across, it's one and done. Like something appears and then it's gone.
Well, and I think that's there are campaign strategies that are layered into comprehensive strategy. I was raised in business in the commercial real estate investment firm that I worked at. And I remember the first time they said, well, you need to put together a budget. Well, a bit in previous years had been, they took a percentage of what the marketing was the prior year and said, okay, how can you spend 80% of that? That was budgeting. But I didn't think that made a lot of sense, because I wanted to actually plan for what I wanted to do from a strategy standpoint and where I really thought the expenses were. So I started doing every year really deep dives, and it got really complex into all of the expenses that we'd accrued in prior years, items that were in other budget areas that I knew really should have been in marketing, items that were in the marketing budget that really should have been in other areas and allocated to different things, and starting to understand. And along with budgeting, of course, you're building a calendar because we were doing an annual budget. I needed to know how much I was going to spend on ICSC in May, except I wasn't really spending it in May. I was spending it in January, March, May, and June. So it all had to turn into this entire calendar process. So it's not something that I learned. It's just something that I believe very, very firmly that without a calendar, you're not doing anything.
So you have to have that strategy. And as Reagan, the wizard behind the show, our producer, would say, you can't do 100 if you don't do the first one, but you should start planning it all from day one. Speaking of ICSC, you've got the luncheon, you've got the in-person event, you have pre and post messaging. So ICSC New York's coming up. What are your clients doing, or what are your thoughts on end of year marketing for them? What should they be doing?
So we have a handful of clients that go to ICSC New York. This has been a year of turmoil, of course, in the ICSC world. And so we're seeing significant drops in attendance. Here in Chicago, we had about a third of the attendance that we had in earlier years. And I think that's carried through into other conferences in other markets, including New York, which traditionally has been their second largest conference of the year. So I have limited numbers of clients that are attending that, and instead they are diverting their focus into the 2023 conferences. So we are already planning 2023 conferences as it relates to ICSC appearances, and that is in markets like Chicago, of course, but certainly the ICSC Vegas conference. I have a number of clients who go to Center Build, clients who go to some of the regional shows. I actually have a client that goes to like all of the regional shows. They're an association with a lot of members within there. So we're really doing this time to really strategize for what we're doing.
So you're building that 2023 calendar, but still the advice being double down on your conferences, be in attendance physically. And what about support marketing wise? Ads, social, email, newsletters, things like that, without giving away secret sauce. I know.
Oh, no, no, I love talking about it. This is my profession. This is something that brings us a lot of joy as a company, and serving our clients and amplifying their messaging, talking about their portfolios, talking about their strategies. Those are really special things to us. I consider it a huge honor and a stewardship to be able to be a steward of their message. We are definitely starting promotional plans in advance of conferences, if we're talking just about conferences. But in marketing in general, in this end of the year planning, we're talking about different channels. And those channels do often include paid advertising. They do include social media almost always. We're really, really excited to see commercial real estate companies that are going into the forefront of being social media leaders and not being afraid of it or reticent to be involved. I love the evolution of perspective towards social media and using it as a tool and not as something that is ancillary to business and that you shouldn't even worry about, which is how I perceived it to be 5 years ago. It has changed tremendously.
Oh, when I used to say Twitter was for people that can't write and Instagram is for people that can't read. But my customers are there, so now I have to be there. How about TikTok? I've got to ask. Do we need to be on TikTok as real estate businesses?
We don't have any clients on TikTok yet. And we have been reticent to adopt TikTok. And I don't know that that's been strategic, quite frankly, other than the fact that many of our clients aren't looking to create a national presence or a large followership. And this is a piece that I actually talk to businesses about all the time, whether they're local businesses or even like our investment businesses that we work with, because there is this misconception that we're all consumer facing and that we need to have all these followers. The reality is that most of us are not consumer facing. We are business facing. We are B2B businesses. We are working primarily with other businesses and not consumers. Or in the small business world, even if you're working with consumers, you want them in a local area to come to your shop, come to your store. So in an example of a fitness studio, they don't need 1 million followers watching them do exercises when they want to get 20 more members of their local studio a month. It's a very, very different strategy. So understanding the strategy and the audience is really, really, really important, because just getting followership doesn't actually lead to business. And we know that.
Right. Well, so now you're talking about return on investment. That you flip the model way back when, instead of 80, do it at 80% less, right? You flipped the model and said, no, allocate what should be allocated here, there, and let's start focusing on the return for what we're doing. How should a business approach that return? Just more spend, more people on Facebook ads? No, I don't think so. But that's your department. You tell me.
Thankfully, in a paid advertising structure like Facebook, they do have you initially start outlining your goal. What is your goal? Is your goal to get leads? Is your goal to get people to move into your apartment building? We had that situation with a property in Duluth, Minnesota, where they literally wanted people to come tour their apartments. So we did do a Facebook advertising campaign, and it was phenomenal. I think much of that is because it was consumer facing. And you have to remember that anytime we're talking about real estate and we're talking about paid advertising, we often fall under the legal requirements of HUD, et cetera, because the word real estate is in our company names. Facebook approaches it like we're residential real estate agents, which takes out 95% of the targeting capability. So it is almost always a shotgun approach. It cannot be targeted like you would for a consumer product.
Wow, something to consider when you're actually naming your company for those starting out in the future as you move out and about in the world. What about video versus video ads as opposed to static content?
So
what are your thoughts there? Sorry, thing.
You gotta do it all where you can. If you're doing advertisement again through Facebook, you're able to create dynamic ads where they can populate with video, and so you can do video and static imagery. You can add 4 or 5 subjects, just 4 or 5 descriptions. It will actually mix and match them to find out what the most effective ad content is. All of those pieces, and it's dynamic. It's part of their advertising platform. It's actually really cool. It's kind of fun to play with if you're bored.
So, and it's a what is it? Try small, fail small and fast, and pivot, right? And you adjust. But recently, you also were teaching some classes. Is that an avenue you're pushing on other clients? Are your clients out there promoting themselves as thought leaders through white papers? What are they doing? What is a comprehensive strategy?
Well, comprehensive strategy has to be tailored to our clients' businesses. And we have a couple of them that are, one is, actually we've got several that are teaching classes or in an educational style of space, one of which is a professional commercial real estate mentor. And his passion, after being in the business for 55 years himself, is to train a new generation of people who want to come into commercial real estate but don't really know how. Often they come from a residential sector and would have always preferred to have been in commercial. They may have just ended up in residential and don't really know how to get into commercial. And that was the opportunity that I had yesterday. And it was really neat to be able to explain some of the differences that you and I think are intrinsic, although you're one of the few dual practice experts that I know. Many are not dual practice, especially in urban areas. And I talked to them a little bit about that yesterday in my class, because in urban areas, we specialize. But when you get a little bit more rural and you get out of those urban centers, everyone's a dual practice. They just do real estate.
Right, well, originally it was just Main Street Bob, because that was it early on. Now, I've been lucky enough, my wife and now partner, she's a residential specialist, commercially trained in retail. I've focused primarily commercial. But to your exact point, a lot of the agents I've trained, they were residential, but they were interested in commercial. They just didn't understand, like when you first get your license, just to go on the tangent of it, that doesn't teach you how to do real estate. That just tells you what's involved. And then you actually have to go learn it. Right. And the easiest interview you ever go on is one where you go to become a residential realtor. It doesn't cost that office anything to bring you on. But when you start to work in the commercial world, at least in the Northeast and with across the country, it costs money when they bring you on to hold that license as a broker, to have the people under you that you're managing. There's just more risks, more expense.
course.
Super excited to hear you're teaching those classes, and EAC is growing as well, but that's for a separate call, a separate interview. So you're here teaching the class, it's growing, and people are receptive.
They are.
And
And it was so weird because I was talking and I saw people writing down what I was saying. And I don't
new experience.
see teachers speak that often, quite frankly. And I felt so good that I was providing them something valuable. And there are some aspects of residential real estate that are intuitive. I explained that you don't see commercial brokers going and having a lot of photo shoots of themselves, right? Residential brokers have to do that like every 6 months. They have full photo shoots, full, you know, themselves.
Every business card, everywhere, photos everywhere,
pictures everywhere. And we talked about personality in residential being such an important driver, and yet credibility in commercial being such an important driver, that they're actually a little bit different, because you can have credibility and still not have a very good personality.
And still get and commercial still get deals done, but in residential, you're not going to have any clients. It's a numbers driven world, as opposed, and I say this with respect, emotional driven world. But it is a big world. One of the things I personally love most about commercial is businesses are always getting bigger or smaller. It's recession proof, right? Regardless of the shift we're in, there's going to be commercial opportunity, and it's less painful. It's just businesses, right? Residential, there's some pain, and there's some technology out there that's coming online that's really putting that side of the industry at risk. So for those of you thinking about going commercial, do it now. Clearly, now's the time. But what about and let's switch gears here. What about the investment funds and some of the other groups you work with? They're out there marketing. Are they shifting their marketing with the times? The lending money's harder to get. All the banks have loaned out what they need to for the year. So is messaging changing month by month, or are you sticking to the calendar despite the change in headwinds?
Messaging always gets tweaked during the year. So part of the calendar is the actual task that needs to be done, like for instance, an e-blast, but that may or may not have the messaging attached to it. We know that in December, we need to send an e-blast often, and I don't see it changing this year, but beginning of December is when you send an end of year close e-blast. We close quickly.
Well, and right? Your hat and your swag, the different stuff you send out.
Yes. And of course, yes, got to send out tchotchkes, holiday cards, all of those touches come towards the end of the year. We're working with one client on their end of year newsletter. I had a client call this week who wanted to add, like, I think I really need to do a newsletter. I haven't done one in a couple of years. I like how this other company does theirs. You've done ours in the past. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Let's get those stories out there. Let's make sure that we're touching people in multiple ways. From an investment strategy standpoint, what I am seeing for many of my clients is that they're keeping their powder dry. And Andreas, both you and I have been doing this for a very, very long time. This is my 19th year in commercial real estate. In April, it will be my 20th. I have been through an entire cycle, but certainly depending on which sector you're in, because they cycle a little bit differently, you could argue that I've been through 2 or 3 just based on product type. There is a tendency, if you are an institutional buyer or a family office who does not have to deploy capital, when things get uncertain, you just don't. It's pretty easy. You
can wait.
You can. You really can. If you don't feel like it, you don't have to spend it. That being said, I have other clients that are pretty opportunistic investors who are actually buying. They've bought a lot this year, which is kind of fun to see. The one transactional piece that has been so exciting to me, and my background really, I started in retail, and so I have this like severe love for retail. I love how much leasing activity is happening. It makes my heart so happy.
It's actually been surprising in my mind, the retail lease ups everywhere. New businesses are starting, despite it all over the place. Most people will agree maybe offices will get back to 60% occupancy, but we're seeing all these new pop-up businesses, which are driving things in the economy, which are great. Some vacancy, yes, but they're the 3,000 square foot stores, not the mom and pops, so to speak, who must be doing something right, building their brand and growing their businesses, and you work with them as well. So you do it. Your Carlson Integrated is truly full service, from real estate all the way through mom and pop.
Correct. I feel like everyone we've ever worked with has some sort of tie to real property. Interestingly enough, whenever we've worked with like a localized business, and we've had several that we work with, we've been introduced by their broker. We're working with because their brokers are connecting us because we have strong relationships in the brokerage community, and they know that their clients need help and need to get more feet in the door. They need to get more widgets sold, whatever those things are. And there's always a tie to real property, which actually it makes all of life come full circle.
Well, it's making the biggest splash when you open your business, as you expand your business, and that from a marketing standpoint, you touched on how Facebook limits how you can target. With Google Ads, as I understand it, I mean, that geolocation, that fence of advertising, I mean, that's as good as it gets, getting your customers in your area to your business, real estate or otherwise.
For sure.
What are some? Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're.
I'll come back to it because I want to know the tips for Google Ads and Google marketing because I'm curious.
I am going to, then it's a perfect segue then, because that's what I wanted to talk about. Do not do professional Google Ads work. That is one area that we have chosen not to specialize in. And part of that is because I really, truly believe it requires specialization. That being said, there are a couple major pitfalls that we've had clients fall into that I find to be concerning in that industry. And I am now very, very, very cautious about who I recommend people work with from that ad provider standpoint. Here's why. Here's some of the structures that I consider to be a lot challenging. There are ad companies out there that will tell you that you are to spend, that the entire cost all in is $2,500 a month. Pay us $2,500 a month, your ad will be out there, and we'll send you analytics and all of that. But there's no transparency as to where that money is actually going. And often clients would find out that, oh, if we really break it down, 2,000 of that is going to a fee to the company and only 500 is going to ad spend.
Wow.
That is very common. Another one that we are finding and that we have seen over the past several years is that a company may say there's transparency. Like, our fees are separate. Our fees are separate and our Google ads are separate. We are going to set up your account. It's your Google ads account. You'll be able to see everything. You'll log into everything, which is amazing. So then we go and log in and we can see everything, and the pricing is transparent. We can actually see what's going on. And then we ask for the data, and it turns out that, oh, that was in the really small print. Sure, we made it in your name, but you never own this data. We own it. We're the ad company. We own your data.
Wow.
I was really disappointed to have that.
And that's something we've talked about often on the show with Saul, data ownership.
Yeah.
And without that data, you can't grow your marketing pipeline. I mean, you're stuck with that company.
Yeah, you can't leave them. And I've never wanted to be in a business position where somebody would have to work with me. That kind of creeps me out. We love our clients. We want them to want to work with us because we really want to work with them. For the strategy to be to hamstring companies and force them to work with you, I find to be borderline unethical, but it is common in that industry. So we have literally come across in the past several years only 2 companies that we even refer out to, because they have transparent pricing, because they have all of the analytics owned by the client. And we think that is just the most important thing that can happen in that Google Ads world. That being said, I'm going to pivot a little bit off of Google Ads. I'm going to talk about Google My Business.
Well, I love Google My Business. So
Google My Business is the best tool that is possibly out there. Actually have ads associated with Google My Business, which are highly effective. And if you Google My Business, for anybody who doesn't know, is when you go on Google and there's got little box on the right, like if you Google company, and then on the right hand side, there's this cute little box that has like the map and maybe a couple of pictures and the address, all of those things. Those are your Google business listings. If you are a company owner and you go in there and you don't own that listing, you need to claim it because Google automatically creates them. And not everybody is been paying attention and knows that they're there. Moreover, we've had during the pandemic many client businesses that were marked as temporarily closed during the pandemic. That was maybe a Google piece, not theirs. I've come across 2 this week alone for client businesses. And thankfully, I have a pretty good pipeline direction to Google because I do this fairly regularly. And I was able to request that we
Turn them back on.
put back on, and they do, which is so nice because they're very receptive to my map changes. I think because I make them very regularly on our clients, and they're all pages that I'm tied to. It's all completely ethical. It's all they're starting to recognize that I'm a credible person for fixing things on the map and fixing the Google My Business profiles. But it's a real problem. You got to pay attention to how we're showing up on Google, guys. All of us do.
Well, and that's the front page of Google. So EAC gets 2 to 3 EAC brokerage, commercial brokerage, keyword, guys, commercial brokerage gets 2 to 3 leads a week off of Google My Business because I'm on the front page of Google and I don't pay anybody. We claimed it, we update it, we get reviews on it, and it just works. The fact that with CRECo we post our properties onto it is another add value, and that you can post to it. Who knew? It was built to be a social platform. Didn't quite get there, but the Google My Business part is still growing. I mean, it's incredibly valuable. But before we go too far,
keep updating it. Keep updating
it. But before we go too far there, I have to ask, only because you said something interesting. You have this black book providers. I too have a black book of providers from a prior life, let's call it, that used to say to me, "Sir, you have to spend this money on SEO. Without the SEO, you're dead in the water. And it's going to cost you 60 grand a year." And literally a notebook. I remember helping build out a team, residential team early on, paying 60,000 in ad spend plus with SEO, with Zillow, Trulio, which, by the way, let's not even go down there. Because residential, anyone in residential on the call, if you're buying leads, you're not doing business. Commercial brokers don't buy leads. There's a reason. That being said, what's SEO? Myth, service to buy, service to do in-house. What's the deal with SEO? Because so many people promise it, and sometimes it's a package, but most of the time I've found it's all snake oil, most of the time. Done improperly anyways. Sorry, I had to go there.
Oh, man. So we are not SEO specialists by and large. We have a couple members of our team who are credentialed in SEO through the HubSpot Learning Academy because I think it's important to
have it. You have to have it. Yeah, I agree with that.
SEO.
But how do you get it?
Well, like, here's the deal. It should already be there on your website. So SEO is related specifically to your website, specifically to the pages that are there and the content that is on your website. And certainly in WordPress, you can put in plugins that SEO focus, like Yoast, and you can do a paid version of it, which is like, oh, you can put in lots of keywords and lots of other things. Like, you can do even more than just the basic amount. The real issue to me is that Google is crawling sites. Sites need to have sitemaps. Those sitemaps need to be updated in Google. The Google Analytics piece of this, Google Search Console, Google Analytics, we use Google Sitekit on the back ends of our sites so that, like, if you're providing the right data to Google, it has the ability to actually crawl things properly. There tends to be a data breakdown, and I'm not entirely sure why. Sometimes I even come across it. I'll be looking at one of the sites that we've worked at, and I'm like, oh, we haven't updated the sitemap. We need to literally provide that file to Google so that they actually can crawl it properly. So all of these pieces wrap into SEO, but they don't have to be super expensive, like, at all.
It doesn't have to be its own company that specializes in SEO. It sounds like it should be part of your marketing calendar, website design, redesign. it's part of. It's
For sure. It's encompassed in it. We say we're doing in the same list of bullet points where we say we're doing a responsive website because it's basic. It is basically required for every website build to have SEO. That being said, where the big SEO companies come in are for really large firms that are consumer facing, really large firms that have hundreds of pages that need to be differentiated. But for most of our smaller commercial real estate firms, we're not to that scale. So if we're not having 500,000 visitors and trying to get in front of 500,000 visitors a year, and the reality is in commercial real estate, we're not. We really want to get in front of just the people who do deals with us. Those are
6 million of us in the U.S., plus investors that might not be counted there.
So we're just not trying to get all of that 6 million people. Do you really want them all on your website? Is your website going to handle even 6 million visitors? No, of course not. That's not, real estate is so localized.
That's right. And localized.
Unlike CRECo, by the way. CRECo, everybody on their website.
Well, thank you for that. CRECo can handle 6 million. We index 27 million properties. We are an integrator for technology. Please go to CRECo.ai. Happy to talk tech. But what we are not is an individual website for your business. 10 pages, 20 pages. To Becca's point, the CRECo.ai platform will host data in the background and push it to your website. But that's the big difference. And SEO is a concern, and there are people much smarter than me that handle all of the tech on our side. Just as Becca mentioned, she put together a great team for writing blogs and so forth. We didn't know what we didn't know starting out. So we found the right people. I found the right people. And now we're doing things I thought we would never do or things that I didn't know could be done. But check us out at CRECo.ai, CRECo.ai. Search, network, promote. You're guaranteed to find someone to do a deal with the right way, in the right space, in the right market, with the right data. And you totally took me on a tangent. So back to, we covered SEO, we covered social media, snail mail. I love snail mail. Personally, as a brokerage owner, I source deals through a handwritten letter. I put my card in there. Not the letter, because that's a lot of writing, but the envelope is handwritten. So they open it, and it works. Do you do snail mail? Are your clients doing snail mail? Is it worth it?
So I like to do snail mail. I actually just sent out a couple weeks ago my little holiday form. I sent out a form that says, please tell me where you're at this year geographically so that I can send you your holiday card. And I give people the option of just getting an electronic holiday card, but I would prefer to send them all paper. Sometimes I even ignore the fact that they said send me email and send them a paper one anyway, because I love paper cards. I love utilizing the mail to get seen in someone's inbox, paper inbox.
Or office. Yeah, sit on their desk. Right? It's your logo on their desk.
And we have some clients that have been doing some postcard campaigns, which actually we really, really enjoy. Actually, we have a client that's residential real estate broker. He's been very good at that, right? Like we had a branded campaign of 6 or 7 postcards to the same building of really her trying to engage with the residents there and talk to them about their space and talk to them about their particular needs that are focused in that specific building. That's not most of our clients. Many of them are transitioning kind of the ease of digital marketing and the hands-off.
Which is kind of a pitfall sometimes, no?
Can be a pitfall. And so we are seeing a little too much of that. I'm hoping things will swing back the other way. I do have a client that does a newsletter electronically, and they are doing follow-up mailing newsletters afterwards, which I'm really excited about. They've been doing that for about 1.5 years. They decided not to just be digital. Before that, they'd all been digital. And then they decided to go back to having them on paper and mailing them.
It's funny, as a growth strategist, I talk with companies all the time, and they're like, well, we're going to have a beautiful website, and we're going to generate millions of dollars because the website's going to turn everybody into customers. And I went, really? marketing is great, but I've never seen marketing so great that you don't need sales, that you don't need follow-up. It's the human element. It's the same reason we get on video calls and want to gather, circle the wagons. That letter is just one of 13 touches, language of sales, and whichever selling technique you subscribe to. You got to drop your logo, drop your card, call them, voicemail. Which leads me to one last thing, which I find terribly invasive but terribly effective: text message for business.
Okay.
I hate it, but it works. I mean, I get it. I read it, and I know what it's. I read it. If I could block it, I would. It has actually forced me to not want to text anyone else, and I somewhat ignore some of the alerts now. It's kind of destroyed that for me. So, for those of you on the show, if you want to reach me and it's important, call me. Don't text me. But what are you doing on the marketing side? What are businesses doing from your side, in your opinion?
So for the most part, I'm not seeing a ton of text campaigns. I'm not seeing a formalized business strategy around text. I am seeing a lot of business done via text.
Really?
Here's one of my challenge points. When I have people talking to me about meetings in LinkedIn Messenger or Facebook Messenger or on text message, getting that information to maybe my assistant so that we can actually schedule something and put it on a calendar with a Zoom invite and all of those pieces together is harder than you might think, because on some platforms we don't even have email addresses, and certainly in text messaging it's not like it comes magically with email addresses. But I want to have that organization process where I'm being responsive, and sometimes when things are on messaging platforms I forget. And maybe other people don't, but I do. I'm really bad at using that for scheduling. So I'm really trying to be conscientious about moving things into
Email,
so that we can have a normalized schedule piece to it. Another piece with text messaging, and I have a client who is a litigator, and he literally blogged on this last month. So it was really interesting. I get to like review the blogs. I can't. This is not my writing. This is formal legal writing, and not written. I mean, website SEO hate. This is not written for a fifth grader. This is complex, significant writing, and the topic of utilizing text is that there are many challenges of it, especially when you're doing business, because there's nuance, because there's informality, because God forbid there's some sort of business challenge between the parties. It's hard to get it admissible in court for various reasons, including that we all think that the cell phone companies keep all of our stuff forever. They don't. They don't keep all of the texts you've ever sent in your entire life. They are not there. And for a younger generation that's in the workforce, it's their entire lives of text messages that we tend to think that there's these great storage vats or facilities where everybody's watching us and stalking us and keeping track of all of our correspondence over time. Like, that's actually not true. And so if you're in some sort of litigation situation, there could be some real problems in having used text for those pieces. So it's really fascinating to read out. And, that's certainly a whole different angle than I forget to respond to people because it's in my text messages or like I'm annoyed with robo texting.
Well, no, and so I use LinkedIn a lot for business development, and I, like you, immediately go, here's my email, let's shift to email, because then I can kind of track it. I have labels, I have filters, I have rules, I have all this stuff to kind of keep me coordinated as I move forward. Not to mention it links to CRM systems for businesses, and it's just a better form of communication. And I'm not going to talk about WhatsApp at all at this moment, but text has been invasive, and it seems like everyone just wants to text and send promotions and links. And for those that haven't heard Darren and I speak about this, those links could be dangerous. People just don't think about it. So I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, that the next generation may not remember how to use a phone in a couple of years, and that's a problem, and they should be emailing. And one thing that I have found effective in all my years in business is to follow up a phone call with an email. So it's not that you should just email. No, have a phone call, understand the nuance, the reactions that you're going to hear, because reading a text, whether it's in all caps or not, depending on how you feel emotionally, you might feel like that person's screaming at you.
Yeah.
And that's not what was intended. It's not, texting is for a directive, not for a communication, in my humble opinion.
Right. No matter how many emojis you include.
Oh my God, yeah. Just because emojis, I heard this the other day. And although I agree that emojis may be a universal language, it is not right for anything. There's an emoji for everything, but it doesn't mean you should use it for business communication. And I'm seeing them everywhere. So we're building your brand. You're opening your business. It sounds to me that step one, Google my business. Make sure it's ready out there, good to go.
Before your website.
Before your website.
Before you have a website. Google my business.
So once you get an email, then get Google my business. And social media. Figure out if your audience is on social media.
Always. And actually, we are of the mindset strategically that when you buy your domain, you want to make sure that those handles are available. We use namechecker.com. It shows you all of the, like, anything you could possibly imagine, any handle, because your goal is to get them consistent. And I say this is like a tale learned by screwing up, right? So when I started my company, I guess there are other people with my last name out there. I mean, you wouldn't think Carlson would be that common, but there's probably like a bazillion of them. So companies with the name Carlson or Integrated or Int or Inc. or whatever sorts of extents to that, or like CI is a pretty common set of initials. I didn't get them the same. I have different ones on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
YouTube now has handles. And for those that don't know what handles are, they're your short name. It's like you're at whatever. Yeah. That's a handle for those that don't know.
Yeah. So ours are all different. It's dumb. The goal is to get them all the same. So when you buy your domain and you are really selective about your domain, you should be getting those. And there is a reality that you want to have a blocking position so somebody else can't have them. So we actually recommend, even if you're not going to use those platforms consistently, that you do
go in and register.
Go in and register those handles to your company, because the last thing I want in the whole wide world is for somebody to be Carlson Integrated on Twitter and say terrible things, or be Carlson Integrated on Instagram and have a completely different brand. Oh my gosh, I was at one of our local associations. There was a guy who was explaining that for the past 14 years, or maybe even more, he'd been going through a situation where somebody had impersonated him.
Oh no.
And he was an inspector. Somebody had impersonated him in person going to inspections. He found out somebody was going to inspections under his name and saying that they were him and inspecting houses. I mean, terrifying, absolutely terrifying. This is in the residential world, and this is somebody that I met at a residential real estate function maybe a month and a half ago. Listening to his story about that impersonation, terrifying, and it's taken him more than 14 years to try to get everything cleared up.
Wow.
Really, really long time. So most of us aren't going to have somebody that's going to go I don't think somebody else is going to be like, oh, hi, I'm Becca. But I do think that somebody else could be like, we're Carlson Integrated.
Sure.
And somebody might not know, who doesn't know me well, who doesn't know our company well, and could do some posing as, or, God forbid, do some sort of damage, or inadvertently do damage. I feel kind of bad for there are a couple of other Rebekah Carlsons in the country. I feel bad for them because when they Google their names, they are going to come up with mine more because I'm old.
And you're in marketing, and hopefully you're promoting. So, right. and I'll lean into this. So EAC Properties, right? There's a development group, EAC Properties, in Texas. They're not us. We're in the Northeast. So it was kind of a battle. We had to hyphenate. And we didn't, at the time when we checked the town, we checked the state, we checked the registry, we registered the business. And by the time we got around to doing the domain names, it's like, well, yeah, you can have it for $90,000, We went, no, we'll hyphenate. We'll do .real estate. We'll be fine. It's local. Our business card will get there. But yeah, the handles on all of the other channels getting impersonated. I mean, cyberbullying is such a huge thing. I remember, it was a huge thing. Oh no, not 10 years ago, 20 years ago, buying yourfullname.com.
Yeah.
Just so nobody else did it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I feel bad for the inspector. How did the imposter get paid? It's not like you pay those guys on. I guess you do pay them cash on delivery for home inspection.
I probably do. I don't. It's beyond my knowledge of the home inspection business, but yeah, hearing his lament was really sad, and the fact that it took so many years to unravel. So I mean, that's obviously worst case scenario of someone who is consciously impersonating, but in media and social media, it's just smarter to secure the handles, even if you're not going to use it. So I would say on the primary domains. So I would say Facebook, Instagram, Meta, the Meta company. You want the Meta company. You want to have your domain with the Meta company, and that's it, right? Twitter. There's a lot of different feelings about Twitter right now. A couple of clients who want to get off of Twitter, and our counsel has been keep your handle.
Yeah. Don't delete your account, but maybe don't post.
Yeah, we're just not going to post
Please
there.
contact me here.
Yeah.
Type deal.
Very, very easy response to that. And then obviously LinkedIn, like own your LinkedIn presence. Don't just have your personal profile page, have your business page. Those are important things to have on LinkedIn. And don't forget that you can change that extension. It doesn't have to be Rebekah Carlson 9800, 967422831 or whatever the numbers are at the back. On LinkedIn, you actually can customize your name on there. So make sure that it's something that's relatively fast, like LinkedIn.
Custom URL. No matter how much SEO you have, Google and others still look at your www dot whatever it says is up at the top, right? So that makes sense. Grow your business, check your brand name, be clear and concise about your message. What about you, people within the business, especially in real estate, right? Where we have our brand. I have EAC, and I have myself, the broker, technologist. Should I have personal Facebook, Instagram handles, and all of that, or stick to the business? Candidly, I hate it. Well, I don't hate Instagram. Everybody yells at me because I don't have a personal Instagram. And I'm like, well, my business does. And no, I'm not going to follow you on your road trip because it's my business Instagram. I don't want to see that in my feed. What are your thoughts there? So and I know we're running close to the hour.
I know. I'm sorry. Thank you for taking so much time. I believe that social media adoption is personal. I believe that all of the best plans in the world, every marketing calendar in the world, doesn't beat personal intuition and personal interest. So some people are just more inclined to want to be on Twitter. Some people are more inclined to be on Instagram. You should do what you want as a person. There's no requirement for your personal brand to be on any of these platforms. You should do what brings you joy. I will say the exception to that is probably LinkedIn, because we all should have a profile on LinkedIn because that is a business social media tool, very focused on that. But I don't often accept business relationships on my Facebook. Typically, it's so I can see my cousin's kids that are out of state grow up, and that's what brings me joy on my Facebook. My Twitter, I don't love Twitter, so I'm not going to put in permanent record here how infrequently I check my Twitter. And Instagram, like you, I only have a business account on Instagram. So I only have the Carlson Integrated one, and we follow lots of people and we engage with all sorts of accounts on Instagram, but it is always in that business forum. I don't actually personally want to be on Instagram.
Yeah.
Personal has to win.
Personal preference, being, I'm going to borrow a VC term, I guess being a hyper sniper about how you go after your audience, where they are and how to get to them, and then how you're found, your handle. Collectively, your handle, because that's where the world's headed, until we each get our own metaverses, which is a totally different discussion, maybe with Saul later on.
I think we should have a metaverse discussion, though.
Oh my God, It's coming. The conversations are absolutely coming. Metaverse discussions and branding. Actually, it's a marketing conversation too. Nike, all of the major retailers have already bought brands in the metaverse and
Yes.
so on, and it's insanity.
All consumer-facing marketing.
There we go. Are you consumer facing or are you B2B?
Different.
And to figure that out, call Carlson Integrated. If you can't figure that out, maybe revisit your business plan. But how do people reach you to follow up and learn more? Mr. Mendoza, if you're back there, toss up the contact slide while we're at it. How do they reach Carlson Integrated?
So I'm Rebekah Carlson. The easiest way is via email because then it actually gets seen by human beings. Rebekah@carlsonintegrated.com. You're welcome to find Carlson Integrated on social media platforms and send us randomized messages and see if we get back to you. That should be fun. My cell phone number or my office number is 224-338-9855, and I'm always happy to talk marketing.
Love it. And for those of you who don't know who I am, you should by now. But just in case, you can reach me at 203-584-7257 on Twitter or elsewhere. CRE Collaborative specifically, CRECo.ai. Always happy to talk business growth, technology, brokerage services. And please come back and join us for the Real Estate Roundtable every month, first Thursday of the month at 6 p.m. Anywhere and everywhere you get your audio. Just ask your Alexa device for the CRECo.ai Roundtable or your Apple device. I'm an Apple guy. And it'll get you there. That all being said, Becca, thank you for giving us so much to think about. I don't want to think about it. I'd rather hire you, as I'm sure your clients have gone down this path. Keep the surgeons in surgery is a phrase I borrowed from a marketing guru I met many years ago, and I find it to be incredibly effective. Let's keep the surgeons in surgery. Let the brokers do their jobs. Let the marketers make us all look good. And Mr. Mendoza, you can lead us out to the audience. Thank you for tuning in. Becca, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And see everybody on the first Thursday of December for our holiday special.